Hi, I'm Chris Loftlin, and you are watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. Coming to you today from the campus of Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, with our good friend Chris Loftlin. What's happening, Chris?
How are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. Everything is great. Boy, I have so much I want to ask you, but there's only so much time we have, so let's get to it.
All right.
Boy, I am in awe of your groove meistering ability and all the cool stuff that you've done. But let's go back to the beginning. You come from a place with a very, very rich musical heritage, a place called Philadelphia.
Yes,
tell me about growing up in Philadelphia, particularly as it relates to music.
Well, when I came up in Philly, you still had music programs in schools. So you were able to do music 7 days a week, all day, every day. Everybody still had bands in the basements and the garages. And Philadelphia radio was amazing because you had all kinds of music. You were exposed to everything. So we were in love with music. It didn't matter what it was or how it was. And, we were at the cusp of all of it. We were at the cusp of MTV. We got to see bands on television. We got, the best music education. It was just great. It was just a great time to learn and all that.
How about at home in the house? Your family, did you come from a musical family? Brothers, sisters, parents, records playing, going to shows, things like that?
Father who was a musician. And
what instrument?
He sang and played piano, played trumpet too, actually. And the most ridiculous, LP collection there was. And he actually, the story goes, he taught me how to read from album covers. So it wasn't like Dick and Jane books. It was actually engineer, double bass. Yeah.
What a cool way to grow up. What were they? Jazz records, big band, R&B? What?
Absolutely everything. It was literally Gladys Knight and Jimi Hendrix and Carole King, and it was
a real music lover.
Yeah, it was absolutely everything. I know more Barbra Streisand than I should, and Barry Manilow too, for that matter. But
there's some lush arrangements there. Peter Matz and all that.
Yeah.
What attracted you to the bass?
Okay, so here's another story. I'm told. I'm too young to know if these are lies or not, but the story goes, I walked up to the television and pointed to the guy in the back and asked my father, "What's that?" He said, "He's the bass player." I said, "That's what I'm going."
Upright bass?
Electric bass, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the other story.
That's interesting that you could discern between. Was there a guitar player also in the band, or?
It's probably one of the 70s shows where everybody was in the back and it was just blacked out. You just saw figures, but for whatever reason, I remember doing that.
So he got you a bass?
No, I got a clarinet first, because all my friends.
Bass clarinet?
No, not even. I got a regular old clarinet, and I played that for a few years. And my older brother was the one who brought home a bass for me, an electric bass. A good friend of his had one. He brought it home, and I just sat there and tried to play it and just spent the entire day trying to get the intro of an Earth, Wind & Fire song together. And
took you a whole day to learn how to play the bass, huh?
Entire day to try to get that song. And I've been in love with it ever since. And almost quit the clarinet till I got into high school. And I read a Musician Magazine article with Marcus Miller.
I was just going to ask you about Marcus because he started with the woodwinds and clarinet.
And I read where he played clarinet, so I didn't quit.
Yeah. He still does once in a while on his records. How about you? Do you still?
No.
Okay. Well, once you discovered, I guess, Verdine and later Marcus, but did you find yourself listening to the records differently now that you knew about the bass? Did you find yourself listening to the radio differently? Did you have any bass heroes, bass influences?
I did, and most of them ended up, I learned about most of them from records. So all of my heroes were the studio cats. So I wanted to be Abe Laboriel Sr. and Anthony Jackson and Marcus and Willie and Victor Bailey and John Patitucci and Tom T-Bone Walken, and just like all these people who played on these records and these bands that I love. But I just saw it as the fact that they got to play all this amazing music with all these different people, and you didn't know who it was. You just they got to play this great music all of the time, and I said, well, that's what I want to do.
What about the previous generation where the names weren't necessarily on the records? Carol Kay, James Jamerson, that whole period?
That was before my time. Like when I was figuring out what it was I wanted to do, those were the people that were doing it. Now, the rest of it is what I call cookout music, which is everything that you hear when you get together with the family. And I didn't get to really deal with that or appreciate that until I was older. And then, you put on that Motown record when you're, 15, and it's like, oh, why are you all playing this again? And then you put it on when you're 21, and you're like, what just happened? Mm-hmm. Like, was that always there? Was that, you know what I mean? So I didn't hear it until I got older. But then after that, then it became, James Jamerson, and it became, Bob Babbitt, and it became, Jerry Jamont. It became Dave Hood. It became, all of those players. It became Bootsy with James Brown. It became, Larry Graham before One in a Million when he was with Sly and, and his own band. And those records were always in the house. That was music that, my older brothers and sisters listened to. And And it wasn't until I got older I was like, that's what that is.
Well, you're speaking my language, and we we'll also have to thank Dr. Licks for putting out that Standing in the Shadows of Motown. James Jamerson. I was just going to say, he is from what city?
That's Philadelphia all day.
That's why I brought it up.
Right.
All right, so growing up in Philly, going through the school program, being blessed by everything that you had available to them, kind of implying that may not be available to the kids these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But moving forward, then you went to Berklee.
Came to Berklee.
You came to this place here, and then what happened after that? I heard the name Brian McKnight floating around with when your name comes up, his name comes up. Tell me how that came to be and what that gig is all about.
Well, once again, it's the Berklee Association thing, and really dear friend of mine who was a huge influence and big mentor to me, Carl Carter. He was actually playing with him, and his schedule got busy, and he'd send me to sub for him once in a while. But I was a huge fan of Brian, and he was one of those guys who you could hear all of the influences in his music that we grew up with. So I could hear the Steely Dan in his music. I could hear the,
Chuck Rainey.
Well, I could hear the Kenny Loggins in his music. I could hear the Commissioned in his music. So those people and the people who played with those people were the huge influences of mine. So that's how we still connect. And that's why I've had the gig for 16 years. Ooh. And
you must have been awfully young when you got that gig.
No, I think I don't remember. But that's how we communicate still, is that's how we both hear music. So we don't necessarily speak in references because we don't have to. He'll play something and I'll have a great idea where he's coming from bass-wise with it. And it's those same records and it's that same time and it's that. So yeah, Chuck Rainey comes up, Ava Boreal comes up, Marcus, all those people come up. They come up. So I end up being able to do that, and it's great. It's such a great thing, and that's probably one of the reasons why that gig is so special to me, is because I get to play like all of my heroes on there. I get to reference all of those things on that gig. It's really great. It's really great.
Are you having fun?
Absolutely.
Let's talk gear. Tell me about, let's talk basses, strings, and amps. Okay. The basics. What are you using?
I have a couple MTDs. Thanks, Mike. I love you.
Mike Tobias.
Yes.
Hi, Mike.
He makes great instruments, and they're all super comfortable. I have my my heart is my 80s Japanese 4-string Squire Jazz, though. I love that bass. I love that bass. And I have a couple Cruise Maniac Sounds, the Japanese company. Amazing basses. For amps, Steve Bailey is the one that introduced me to the Warwick LWA 1000. And he actually got it when it was still kind of a prototype. And he asked me to check it out, or I was asking him about those kinds of amps.
A Jonas Hellborg amp, right?
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, check this out." And so for literally 6 months, I would knock on his door before I go to a gig. Like, Steve, can I borrow that amp again? So his amp saw, a bunch of the world, because it's just I couldn't live without it once I had it.
That's what everybody says. I just interviewed Dave Rowe at the Summer NAMM show,
Yeah.
and he couldn't stop about it. He said it's fantastic. And he's a doubler, too, so he plays electric and upright.
That amp is incredible. And it's such a great sound. It's a pure sound. It's transparent. Whatever your bass sounds like, that's what it's going to sound like. And it's it doesn't color it at all. It's such a great thing. It's such a great tool. And I couldn't live without it from the first note. So Steve was nice enough to introduce me to those people and talk them into treating me really good.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then for strings, I use Dean Berklee SR 2000s. I like those. Very, very clear tone. Very, very, that tone lasts a long time, but it's pure. And I use what was known as the Will Lee gauge, but I think it's just a kind of a custom medium gauge where it's like 47 to 127. So the output of it is...
That sounds pretty thick to me.
Only about, a little bit.
How big? Let me see those hands, man.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I don't play hard. I don't play hard. But the output of those strings is huge, and that's my thing. Is just the big, fat bass tone that everybody else gets to completely relax, just rest on, just be comfortable on. And so,
Well, great. What advice do you have, Chris, for we're sitting here in Berklee. You teach in Berklee. I can imagine the aspirations that some of these kids have. I'm going to call them kids, even though they're young adults. They're kids.
Yeah.
What they have in mind, what they want to do, and how much grounding you have to give them to let them know what the real world is like and isn't like. What kind of advice do you have for people who want to make a career in music and are serious about it?
The piece of advice that I can give any of them is the fact that anybody that we loved and we think is a hero and we really want to pattern ourselves after, they did lots and lots and lots of work. They studied really hard. And that's something that we can take for granted now because, I liken, the younger generation to computers. And the way that they process information, way quicker than we did. So they have faster processors and all, but it's still an empty computer. It can do the work quicker, but you still have to put that work in. And access to that information, it has an availability that it didn't have because of Google and YouTube. But you still have to put that work in, and knowing it and being able to collect it, and that doesn't make you a great player. Everybody's favorite players did tons and tons and tons of work. And so even if that conversation doesn't come up in their interviews anymore because they've been doing it, maybe twice as long as some of us have been living, they did that work. You can hear that work. We all just play a piece of furniture. So in order to get that piece of furniture to speak to you in a way that makes you say, I want to do that way, that's tons and tons of work. And that's what I want everybody to do. And it's not work in that it's a job. It's work that it's fun. I could tell anybody, okay, I have this brand new video game and I got all the cheat codes. And immediately people would say, yeah, I'm for that. But for whatever reason, you say, okay, here's the bass and this is all of the stuff that you have to learn to be able to play like this. They run away from it. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing. Just do the work. And I still want all those people I named. I still want to be them when I grow up because I haven't grown up yet. So I'm still very much 12, 12 years old when I grab a bass. So I still want to be Abe Sr. I still want to be Marcus. I still want to be Anthony Jackson. I still want to be Will Lee. I still want to be Bootsy. I still want to be those people. It's fun. It's just fun. There's nothing more fun than that. But you have to get in there and you have to do the work. You just do. And you'll be happy. Because once you get on the bandstand and you're able to play what you hear, and when you'll be able to play something that you'll be able to feel before you even, there's nothing that'll surpass that. No endorsement, no gig, no association, no nothing. No nothing. And we're bass players. That's a special breed. Like we're wired to do it. Other people get to pick and choose. You're wired to be a bass player.
Words of wisdom, words to live by. For bass players only. Chris Loftlin, thanks so much.
Thank you.
This was very entertaining, enjoyable, and inspiring. Seriously, thanks so much. Much luck, continued success to you. Keep imparting that knowledge to these kids and to those malleable minds.
Yes, indeed. I'm trying to.
All right. On the campus of Berklee College of Music with our good friend Chris Loftlin, I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.